with Brian Fisher on AFR Talk.
Listen to the audio podcast or download today's program at afr.net. You can also read Brian Fisher's columns at onenewsnow.com. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email us anytime at focalpoint@afr.net. focalpoint@afr.net.
Hi, welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. 888-589-8840. Number if you want to join the conversation, 888-589-8840. Again, I think what the school board has done in Kansas, ladies and gentlemen, I believe this is the way forward. Because when the Supreme Court ruled that you couldn't pray in schools, that was an act of tyranny. That was an act of judicial tyranny. There is no warrant for that in the Constitution. There's no warrant for such an act of tyranny anywhere in the Constitution. It's completely antithetical to every American value on which this nation was founded. It's tyranny. And remember what Thomas Jefferson said, rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. So when this school board in Kansas, when they say, look, we are going to allow student-led prayer at all school functions, all school activities, and we are going to broadcast them on the school's public address system, they're saying, look, we don't care what the Supreme Court said. We don't care what the Supreme Court did. We don't care what the Supreme Court ruled because we can read the Constitution just as well as they can. And we see in the Constitution there's not one single solitary mention of prayer in schools being prohibited. You can read the Constitution from front to back. You can read it upside down. You can read it translated into Sanskrit. You can read it from right to left, and you will find nowhere in there where the issue of prayer in public schools is even addressed. The Constitution is completely silent on that. And furthermore, the Constitution in the very First Amendment prohibits the central government, the federal government, from getting involved in religious expression at all. Remember that the first word of the First Amendment is Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Congress here stands in for the entire federal government because remember, legislation is only supposed to come from Congress. The executive branch implements it, and then the Supreme Court renders judgments on whether that law has been properly followed or not. So Congress is the one that passed the Constitution. It was enacted by the people. That's now and it says that the federal government, Congress cannot pass any legislation, which means there would be nothing for a Supreme Court to rule on. There would be no legislation that the Supreme Court would even have in front of it dealing with religious liberty. Congress shall make no law prohibiting the free exercise of religion. The federal government, the central government, is flatly prohibited from intervening with any form of religious expression. They can't do it. That issue is entirely under our form of government, under the Constitution, reserved for the states. Federal government is told by we the people in the Constitution, hands off. You can't tamper with this. Federal judiciary, hands off. You can't tamper with this. Executive branch, hands off. You can't tamper with this. The Constitution forbids you to intervene, to interfere in any way with religious expression in the states. That's up to the states to decide. So Kansas saying, look, we're going to do it. This is constitutional. What the Supreme Court did is unconstitutional. Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. So I say to these folks in Kansas, I'm trying to see what the town is. I think it's a Kansas school board. I got the name of the school board. It's ISD number 480. Not sure what town that's in. But I say good on them. And I say may their tribe increase. Time to revisit and review that grotesque Supreme Court ruling. And that's the way forward. You just get in fact, I think that prayer at high school football games, I frankly think, ladies, this could be the thing that breaks the back of judicial tyranny. If you just had prayer offered, student-led prayer, offered over the public address system at Friday night football games, and then somebody tried to say, hey, you can't do that. We're going to go to court. They get a federal judge to say you can't do that. You have a governor say, no, I'm going to protect the constitutional right of students in my state to pray before football games. That's not unconstitutional. In fact, I read the Constitution. It forbids the central government from saying anything about what we're doing with religious expression in our state. I'm going to protect that student. No student is going to get arrested or stopped on my watch. And he sends the state troopers out there, if necessary, to surround that press box while the student is praying, offering a prayer before a Friday night football game. That alone could break the back of this grotesque judicial tyranny that we've had in our land since 1962. 888-589-8840. Like to know what you think about that. If you'd like to see that duplicated in other school districts around the country, we're in the middle of football season now, so now is the time to do it. Now, a couple of other stories I want you to react to, 888-589-8840. Here's a story about cancer. Remember, the Bible says, Genesis 2:19, it is not good that the man should be alone. I will make a helper fit for him, a companion who is compatible with him, who complements him. And it's not good for the man to be alone. And now we discover, 3,500 years later, that science, medical science, is confirming what the Bible has taught since the middle of the 15th century BC. Here's a piece on Bloomberg.com. Now, Bloomberg doesn't mention the Bible anywhere in here. This guy doesn't even realize that he is affirming what the Bible teaches. When I mentioned my bout with breast cancer to a new acquaintance, well, this would be a female writer, sorry about that. When I mentioned my bout with breast cancer to a new acquaintance, his first question was, are you married? It was an unusual reaction. But the very next day, the Journal of Clinical Oncology, this is a peer-reviewed medical journal now, not some kind of theological publication, the Journal of Clinical Oncology released a study offering more than anecdotal evidence that marriage is good for cancer patients. Listen to this. Controlling for demographic factors such as age, race, education, and household income, researchers who analyzed records of more than 730,000 cancer patients, so this is a pretty comprehensive study, 750,000 patients, they found that married patients, listen to this, did significantly better than single people. They lived longer, they received better treatment, and they were more likely to be diagnosed before metastatic cancers developed, that is, cancers that spread throughout the body. It didn't matter whether the unmarried patients were lifelong singles, divorced, widowed, or separated. All did worse than demographically similar married parents. The American Society of Clinical Oncology said this in the press release. This study is the first to show a consistent and significant benefit of marriage on survival among each of the 10 leading causes of cancer-related death in the United States: lung cancer, colorectal, breast, pancreatic, prostate, liver, bile duct, non-Hodgkin lymphoma, head and neck, ovarian, and esophageal cancer. So it's better for all 10 of them for survival and treatment and all that. Now, the study doesn't explain why marriage makes a difference, but I think it's quite obvious. They've got somebody to watch out for them, somebody to watch over them, somebody whose well-being matters to them and who are there 24/7. And the writer goes on later in the piece, friends are nice, but they are rarely equivalent to a spouse. The level of on-call commitment and intimacy is simply different. Your spouse knows you in a 24/7 way that few, if any others do. Your happiness becomes entwined with your spouse's, giving you strong incentives to make an extra effort. So we've known about the benefits of marriage for 3,500 years, and the American Society of Oncology just now catching up to where the Bible has been for 3,500 years. Ladies and gentlemen, do not doubt the Word of God. Now, last story, before we go to the break, then I'd like to take your reactions to some of these stories that we've been talking about. This is in the New York Times, interestingly enough, for love, not the game. This is about a woman by the name of Amanda Blumenhurst, and I want to see what you think about this. This is a story about a woman who has left her career, a successful career, to follow her husband and to support her husband and to be with her husband and to begin to raise a family with him. So she's abandoning everything that the feminist movement says that women have to be satisfied and fulfilled. Let me read you a little bit out of this story. This is, again, New York Times. Amanda Blumenhurst emerged from the customs zone at San Francisco International Airport last week after a work trip to France with 2 suitcases, a carry-on, and her golf clubs. After 4 years as a golfing vagabond, she was steering her luggage cart toward the van that would take her to her next stop, domesticity. Waiting for her was her husband of 9 months, Oakland Athletics first baseman Nate Fryman, who surprised her at the airport thanks to a scheduling change that for once favored the couple. Between Blumenhurst's 16 starts on the LPGA Tour, that's the Ladies Professional Golf Association Tour, and Fryman's first Major League season, the couple have been like 2 planes passing in the night sky. She and Fryman have spent less than a month in the same city since January, Blumenhurst estimated. It was no way for newlyweds to live, so Blumenhurst, 26, and in the prime of her career, decided to step away from the LPGA Tour at the end of the year to more fully inhabit Fryman's world. It may seem like an old-fashioned compromise, the kind that women might have been expected to make a generation ago, but the couple decided it was what they both wanted. She said Fryman, her college sweetheart at Duke, never would have suggested she give up her dream of playing professional golf. He was very supportive of my career, was constantly telling me how proud of me he is, but the constant travel was getting to be too much. I felt like I was missing out on so much being away. When I was at a tournament, my heart wasn't 100% in it. Now, she's a successful golfer. She's recorded 6 top 10 finishes in her first 3 years on the LPGA Tour, and she makes it clear Blumenhurst has not lost her love of golf, but she hated missing out on family milestones. Fryman had 2 hits and drove in a run in his Major League debut in April. Blumenhurst missed it. She was competing in California. Fryman hit his first home run soon after. Blumenhurst missed it again. She was in Hawaii for a tournament. The couple would like to have children soon. In the meantime, she will continue to play in pro-ams, corporate outings, and charity events to maintain a connection to the game that has been the axis of her life since she was 6. For the foreseeable future, her husband's career will be her new axis. Love to know what your reactions to that are. A woman leaving the feminist dream of an independent career to become attached to her husband to make his career the axis of her life. Focal Point AFR Talk, back with your calls in 2. 888-589-8840.